Sally K Norton, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Always fun to hang out with you, Casey. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's such an honor to hang out with you. It's an honor to think of you as a friend. I recently heard you on one of my other mutual friends' podcasts, Tony Pascola, the Primal Foundations podcast. You guys covered some really interesting historical perspectives on oxalate that I thought was fascinating. And I reached out immediately so that I could get you back on and we could cover some of that stuff today. But before we do, I just have to give a huge shout out to Tony. Have you ever met Tony in person? I don't think you went to the exact same KetoCon or Hack Your Health convention that you did.
All right, we've missed each other. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is my favorite time of year to be Tony's friend because every year on April Fool's Day, he always has an amazing prank that he does on his mom. So he was telling me this over dinner in Austin
This
last
poor
time.
mother.
So good. So good. Hack Your Health, he was telling me all about this. So in the past, he has ordered a mariachi band to show up on their front yard and play for like a half hour or an hour or something, and they couldn't get rid of him. Another year, he ordered Grubhub meals to show up every like 5 to 10 minutes. And so like, some delivery person would bring food and they'd be like, what do you do? We didn't order this. Like, well, here's your Chinese food, whatever. Like all this food showed up at their house. This year on April Fool's, he sends me a text that says, hey, check your email. And I knew immediately whatever it was, I was in for a treat. So it's a phone conversation between some woman who is from an insurance company talking to his mother about an insurance claim. This call is being recorded for quality assurance and legal purposes. And back and forth they go for like a very awkward amount of time, like 5 minutes, about an insurance claim, about a car crash that she was in. She was saying she wasn't actually in it. And it just like went back and forth and like where the this is going to the police office, whatever. And like, yeah, it was an amazing conversation. And finally the woman on the other end was like, hey, the case number, you can look this up, is April Fool's. Tony hired a calling service to call his mom on April Fool's and make up a pretend claim. His mom was like, what? Did my son put you up to this? It was hilarious. It was so good.
You'd think she'd just like do like cancel the date on her calendar and just, go away.
Totally. Turn off your phone. Be inaccessible on April Fool's.
Be on
Yeah.
a spa retreat 6 cities over.
Exactly. Exactly. I hope she doesn't do that selfishly for my entertainment value and for telling the story to all my clients. But yeah, I love Tony. He's hilarious. And yeah, apparently, according to his mom, he's been doing that since he was a kid. So big shout out to Tony. Awesome. Like I said, yeah, covering oxalate is so interesting. I think we sleep on how big of a story this is, and sometimes we forget. And you get convinced of it. And I listen to your work, and I think it's a problem. And then after a while, you're like, well, how bad can it be? How bad can spinach and almonds and all these things be? And you kind of forget about it. You need to be reminded of it all the time because the counter message. Vegetables are great for you. Almonds are great for you. Everything that you talked about in your amazing 2023 KetoCon presentation, barefoot on the stage, talking to a bunch of keto people who have probably got on to a lot of the almond milks and almond flours and all these, kind of fake keto products, need to be reminded of this. Does it constantly surprise you how big of a story this is and how much reminding all of us need about this?
Yeah, I think that's the central thing. I'm really proud of you for putting your thumb on like a key issue is that the messages are so counter to this information. And we just get used to how things are. And it's very easy to forget the significance of this and to make it fresh all over again because, oh, I learned about oxalates. Yeah, I'm done with that topic. And then when you need it, when you realize that this is affecting your health personally, it is still very easy to wander off because the whole process can be subtle. Getting sick, the recovery process is not quick and it's up and down. And people are constantly bombarded with other options to be paying attention to. And this becomes a minor thing. So this is the biggest problem of all is that it's culturally feels irrelevant to people. It's very easy to dismiss it or diminish it and very hard to hang on to it in your head because like you say, the structures we have in our head around health and nutrition, there's no space for oxalate toxicity in our heads. And I always do this analogy about that. It's like you've got this new coat, the oxalate information on a hanger, and you're trying to put it on the rod in your head, and there's no rod to hang it on. It just doesn't hang with the structures you already have in your brain.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Before we started recording, you and I were talking about the political landscape here in the United States right now, and there is a greater awareness around things like food dyes, and people are talking about seed oils and actually calling them seed oils rather than vegetable oils. Like that stuff is, changing. There's a restaurant that my buddy owns that's a few miles down the street, and they're switching to frying all their foods in beef tallow. So like we're taking steps. Like there's some awareness, and some people are talking about it. We're definitely very hopeful that that will continue. But so far, I still have not heard anything mainstream talked about as far as oxalate goes.
Yeah, no, we haven't broken through yet, and that's okay because we are learning a lot, and people who are really interested in pursuing health because they have issues, the seekers are able to find us. At least we have the internet, and we have hundreds of interviews, and we have a book now, and we have some resources so the most desperate people can find it. However, if you're really sick, which you can be very sick with a chronic illness from oxalate poisoning, this is literally a toxicity disease, you're looking for some support, validation, some way to kind of tell what your body's doing, how much progress you're making. We would like to have all those things, and we need more research to even be able to do that. But unfortunately, right now, your average sufferer is doing an N of one personal research study, and a lot of us don't feel like we have the energy and attention span to be our own researcher. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, last time we've gotten into your personal story before. Last time we didn't really cover it that much at all. But yeah, speaking of doing a bunch of research when there wasn't the internet and trying to put this all together in your own life, and you were a trained, dietitian, nutritionist from a very prominent school. Tell us, remind us a little bit about your story as it relates to oxalate and how you were able to find all this out and all the things that you suffer from.
Right. Well, I didn't really have the big dawning of recognizing the significance of oxalate in my many health problems until right before I turned 50 years old. And in retrospect, as I started to unpack my story and unpack the science and see them line up with me and all the clients I work with and so on, like I've probably been affected by oxalate since I was a fetus. And certainly there's a good chance that it had a role in the fact that I was given penicillin a lot as a young child for strep and that kind of thing. And when I was older, like college age and babysitting, we had a huge epidemic of ear infections in infants and tubes put in and all this sort of thing. So there's this tendency to have childhood infections, and that crowd seems like a great number of people who get super sick with oxalate have had that in childhood. So some of us can be affected for years. And I started having trouble um, around puberty at age 12 with back pain and fatigue and other pains that became arthritic. And during my 20s, I had all this arthritis. And I ended up with foot pain in my between like high school and college. In the first year of college, I started having foot pain in my right foot that blew up into a decade of disability. Crutches, wheelchairs, painkillers, surgery, foot surgery, and then my feet were never quite great to the point where I really couldn't wear heels. I couldn't go barefoot. My feet needed side support. So even just hanging out in the house, I had to wear heels, or not heels, but wear shoes, which were typically Sebago moccasins because they had the nice kind of side walls to hold me together, but not a lot of structure to kind of deform my weak feet. And it turns out that once I got rid of eating sweet potatoes and Swiss chard and foods that had been standard in my life, my feet no longer need shoes. They don't, I can do heels, I can run on pavement. So, I mean, we talk about me um, presenting a ketocon in bare feet is really significant for me to be capable of standing around in bare feet now. And that didn't occur till I was 50 years old.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Remind us also what the family of oxalates, we call them oxalates. It's a few different things. Remind us what those are and where the source of that comes from.
Right. So oxalic acid is this parent compound that's a tiny molecule with two carbons and four oxygens. So heavy oxygen molecule, quite tiny, made by nature. It's a kind of a degenerative product. It can be formed from other things. And so even in a polluted air, acid rain contains oxalic acid. Soils are loaded with oxalic acid and the crystals that are made from it. So crystalline oxalate forms from oxalic acid forming bonds with minerals, especially calcium. So calcium oxalate is considered what we call an insoluble, hard to dissolve molecule that forms crystals, as do all the kind of crystalline salts of oxalate. So oxalate can form crystals with magnesium and heavy metals and all kinds, but calcium is its favorite partner. So calcium oxalate and the crystals that form from it are throughout nature in the soils. Plants make oxalic acid, often from vitamin C first. They make vitamin C, which easily degenerates into oxalic acid, and then they'll build crystals. And when you eat certain plants that do this well or need to for their physiology, you're eating both oxalic acid and calcium oxalate crystals. The crystals are quite mechanically damaging to your mucosal tissues in your mouth and intestinal tract, because that's just a single cell of a single wall of, not a wall, but a single lining of cells. Like it's not multi layers of cells susceptible to damage despite mucus production and all that. The crystals are hard like quartz, very irritating and sharp, but the oxalic acid gets into the body just like magnesium or potassium or something that just is water soluble that floats into the bloodstream right between the cells of the intestinal tract. So you're eating oxalic acid that gets in your blood. You're eating crystals that irritate your intestinal tract and what we, the alimentary canal all the way from your teeth down. Literally, those crystals in the plants can cause dental wear. They call it micro wear and wear down your teeth. That's how hard they are. They're harder than your teeth.